The air hangs thick with the scent of burning charcoal and determination in Ouagadougou's sprawling markets, where the hum of hushed conversations carries a revolutionary fervour. This is no ordinary day in Burkina Faso. The landlocked heart of West Africa, once dismissed as another casualty of colonial plunder and geopolitical chess games, is stirring with an energy that defies expectation. In the shadow of foreign military bases and the ghostly echoes of failed interventions, a profound transformation is unfolding, one that begins not in the halls of power, but in the calloused hands of farmers, the weary but resolute eyes of mothers, and the unbreakable spirit of a people who have said, enough. On May 24th, 2025, President Ibrahim Traoré etched a line in the sand with an announcement that sent shockwaves beyond Burkina Faso's borders. 10 million, painstakingly gathered from the sacrifices of ordinary citizens, would be poured into the Volunteers for the Defence of the Fatherland, VDP, a civilian militia born not from foreign training camps, but from the soil of Burkina Faso itself. This is no ordinary allocation of funds. It is an act of defiance, a declaration that security will no longer be outsourced to foreign powers whose interests have too often diverged from the survival of Burkinabè villages. The VDP is not just a fighting force, it is a living, breathing movement of market women who contribute a portion of their meagre earnings, of farmers who donate sacks of precious millet, of students who trade textbooks for rifles, all united by a single unshakable belief. If freedom is to be won, they will be the ones to wield the tools of its forging. The world has long expected Burkina Faso to play the role of the perpetual victim, begging for drones from distant capitals, kneeling before the conditions of international lenders, watching helplessly as foreign troops trampled across its land in the name of aid that never stopped the violence. But something has shifted. In the sun-baked streets of Kaya, in the dust-choked alleys of Fadan Gourma, there is a new rhythm, a pulse of rebellion against the old narrative. Traoré's Burkina Faso is not waiting for salvation. It is seizing it with a model of grassroots resistance that has turned the logic of neo-colonial dependency on its head. Yet the road ahead is fraught with peril. Jihadist factions lurk in the northern shadows, foreign powers watch with uneasy suspicion, and the weight of history presses down like the unrelenting Sahel sun. But for the first time in decades, there is something stronger than fear in Burkina Faso. There is audacious hope. This is not just a story of war or survival. It is the story of a nation stitching itself back together, thread by thread, with the hands of its people. The revolution will not be televised. It will be whispered in the markets, shouted from checkpoints, and carried in the hearts of those who refuse to let their future be written by anyone but themselves. The question now is not whether Burkina Faso can endure, but how far its flame will spread. Will this fire of self-determination light the way for others, or will the winds of opposition seek to smother it? One thing is certain, the world is no longer looking past Burkina Faso. It is being forced to watch, in awe or in fear, as a nation long counted out rises, defiant and unbroken, to claim its destiny. The same day, Burkina Faso announced its revolutionary $10 million civilian defense fund. 2 more seismic projects landed like declarations of economic independence, a cashew apple processing plant and a veterinary medicine factory. On the surface, these seem like modest developments, but in a continent where raw resources flee Africa only to return as overpriced imports, they're acts of defiance. For decades, Burkina Faso shipped 90% of its raw cashews to India and Vietnam, where they were processed and sold back at inflated prices. Now the discarded cashew apples, once treated as waste, will be transformed into juice, flour and alcohol on Burkinabè soil. No more begging for value, no more exporting jobs, just local industry, feeding its own people first. Then there's the veterinary plant, a quiet game changer for a nation where livestock deaths from preventable diseases cripple farmers. Instead of waiting for expensive imported medicines, Burkina Faso will now produce its own, tailored to local needs and priced for real affordability. This isn't aid. This is sovereignty. Together with the VDP's self-funded defense model, these projects form a trinity of resistance. Protect, feed, heal, on our terms. Western powers are already uneasy, muttering about militarization and lack of transparency. But their real fear is deeper. What if this works? What if Mali, Niger and others follow suit, rejecting foreign partnerships that disguise extraction as assistance? Traoré isn't building a dictatorship. He's building something far more dangerous to the status quo, a nation that refuses to play by the old rules. As bulldozers break ground and farmers donate grain to arm their defenders, Burkina Faso is proving a radical truth. Freedom isn't given, it's taken, and once tasted, it spreads. The sun sets over Ouagadougou, but the revolution is just waking up. No more waiting for foreign investors to grant permission to farm. No more pausing national dreams for Western conferences to dictate terms. This is the era of African agency. And Burkina Faso is leading the charge, proving that dignity isn't a handout from embassies, but something seized, defended and built by a people who refuse to beg. When a nation stops apologizing for protecting itself, stops bending to be heard, stops trading sovereignty for scraps of sympathy, it becomes dangerous to the old systems of exploitation. And the shockwaves are already spreading. In Nigeria, grassroots movements demand local defense forces. Across northern Ghana, communities organize cooperative security networks. In Mali, fierce debates erupt over economic self-sufficiency. The rallying cry, if Burkina Faso can do it, why can't we? This is the West's worst nightmare. Not a coup, not a sudden uprising, but a slow, deliberate awakening, funded and fought by the people themselves. No sanctions can crush it. No diplomacy can co-opt it. Because the real threat to the empire isn't violence, it's a continent remembering its power. Burkina Faso isn't just changing its fate. It's rewriting Africa's future, one defiant step at a time.